Hey, how's it going, everybody? It's RC Maxwell here for the Back to 12 podcast, and Texas Tech football is officially back as fall camp has started today, year number 2 of Joey McGuire. Well, it's officially back, and if you were excited about Texas Tech football being officially back, all I ask is you simply like the video. We're going to be giving you daily videos about Texas Tech football all the way up until the last day where they're hopefully playing in a meaningful bowl game. But if you were excited about Texas Tech football, all we ask you to do is simply like the video. Let's discuss, though, in today's video just that. Texas Tech opening fall camp, which means local media day was yesterday, and Joey McGuire talked to the media. We will discuss some of the relevant things that Joey McGuire had to say in that first press conference for the 2023 season, including an update on one of the most horrific injuries I've ever seen, but one of the coolest stories now in Bryce Ramirez. And in fact, let's go ahead and start there. Joey McGuire had the first injury report. You had Ben Roberts, you had Ty Buchanan, but you had one on Bryce Ramirez. And if anybody remembers what happened last year out in Raleigh for Bryce against the Wolfpack of North Carolina State, they know how awesome it is to hear that he will officially be practicing at practice number 1 for the Red Raiders in 2023. Joey McGuire just had a huge smile on his face when he announced this news, and it was something that really had a lot of intrigue around this program, right? Again, Bryce had kind of come around, and he's always been somewhat of a leader, but now even more so that he's a senior coming back from this and showing that he has that determination and mindset to never quit and get back on the field. It was just awesome to hear that he's officially back and will be suiting up for Texas Tech this year. And don't get it twisted, he could have a meaningful role if everything goes back. I'm sure there will be a couple of hurdles to go over when it comes to getting back on the field, getting accustomed, and really trusting that leg that went through that horrific injury last year. But it is awesome to hear that Bryce Ramirez will be back in the scarlet and black this year for Texas Tech. Also, Joey McGuire had a lot of questions asked to him in terms of what does Texas Tech need to do better going into the 2023 season. And, well, he started with the offensive line. You can see it down below. Joey McGuire on what Texas Tech has to do better in 2023. We have to be better up front. If we're going to win championships or compete for championships, you have to be good on the offensive line and defensive line. Our plan is to do that. Listen, I think this is obvious, right? But it really does help Texas Tech that they are going to go in with one of the most experienced offensive lines and one of the most experienced defensive lines in the entire conference. You think about some of the guys that are returning for Texas Tech this year. You got Jalen Hutchins on the defensive line, Tony Bradford. You got Steve Linton going in there, Miles Cole, a fifth-year guy who's going into a much more relevant role, right? Then you shift to the offensive side. Everyone on the 2 deep except for one guy, the backup center, has started at least one game at the collegiate level. Think about that. 9 out of 10 guys, 90% of your 2 deep roster on the offensive line has at least started one game in college, right? And now you bring a guy back in Cole Spencer who had the red shirt last year, will be your starting left guard. He will be your best offensive lineman. You play alongside of Rusty Stats now, and I say play alongside because they've already done so at Western Kentucky, as many of you know. And now you put your offensive lineman in a much more better position, and Joey McGuire talked about that yesterday, where he said Dennis Wilburn had never snapped a football before last year, and he was arguably their best offensive lineman. Now he shifts to his more experienced position, natural position, and right guard, and he's been awesome through spring camp, said Joey McGuire. Now you got Caleb Rogers on the right side, and you shift Monroe Mills from the right side to the left side, and you're cooking with gas now, right? You got a solid offensive line. You got experience 2 deep. Now you just have to go out there and perform, and Joey McGuire is absolutely right. You win championships in the trenches, and Texas Tech has made that a priority not only in the transfer portal, but on the recruiting trail in general, and hopefully it can pay dividends this year for the Red Raiders. All right, before we get into more of what Joey McGuire had to say, and one quote that really caught my eye, I don't think it's probably the most meaningful, but it's a lot of fun to think about. Before we get into that, give me your one word to describe Texas Tech football going into 2023, right? Is it expectations? Is there another word you want to use for this team? Fun, exciting, whatever it may be, let me know in the comments down below. All right, let's shift to this fun Joey McGuire quote. You can see it at the bottom of the screen. He said in 2006 at Cedar Hill, We had 18 starters come back and went 16-0 and won the state championship. He then went on to say in the next sentence, we have 18 starters from last year's bowl game returning in 2023. Listen, I think the most refreshing aspect of this is to hear and see this program with an eye and focus on a Big 12 title, right? And the crazy part is this. I think it's realistic, right? Like you have to think about this from a realistic, non-fan point of view. In the past, 6 years, 7 years, maybe really even more so, Texas Tech has not had a chance to win a Big 12 title, right? What you did last year in terms of ending your season 4-0, including that bowl game down in Houston against Ole Miss, where you just obliterated the Rebels, 42-25, in really every facet of the game you dominated. You get that momentum going into this year. You think about it. You get Cole Spencer, you get Rusty Stats on your weakest part of your team, in my opinion anyway, the offensive line, which we just talked about. You go out and you add a guy like Dre McCray in the wide receiver group. You go out and add C.J. Baskerville in the secondary to replace Muddy Waters. You got some impact freshmen with Joey McGuire mentioned, including B.J. Jordan, who will be on the 2 deep, right? You're a deep team this year and an experienced one at that, right? And that is a combination for success in college football. Older teams usually win games unless you're, the Georgias of the world where you have everybody that's a 5-star, Alabama, Ohio State, everything like that. And even they are older teams, right? But Texas Tech is going to be one of the most experienced teams in the Big 12, and they have a shot to win the Big 12. Now, again, when you look at it, they were picked 4th in the preseason. Joey McGuire mentioned that, and I want to make sure that I bring this up because there was a question about how Joey McGuire is going to react to being the hunted in this. He said, we didn't play well on the road last year until the end of the year. They made a transition in terms of focus in their diet during the games, in terms of eating during the games on the sideline. Mentioned that Tech did that at the end of the year in terms of the diet. The Wyoming game is a brand game. And when he talked about expectations, this was the thing that really caught my attention. I don't look at it any different. He said that Kansas State and TCU should be the hunted in this conference because of what they did last year. Someone went on to ask, well, what about Texas, who was picked first in the conference? He said, well, no offense to Texas. They have a really good team. I like Sark and everything, but Kansas State and TCU should be the hunted in this conference considering what they've done lately, right? And so when you look at everything in terms of what Texas Tech is going to do this year in terms of expectations, I think that that's something that's really relevant, that they're embracing them. And it's refreshing to hear and see that this program is doing so, at least in my opinion, from the standpoint of you have that realistic view on this, even if you want to go hyper unrealistic in terms of Texas Tech has a chance to play in the college football playoff. Like if things break your way, yeah. Is it likely? No, but it's refreshing that within that building, there is an elite level of expectation. It starts with the head man himself in Joey McGuire. If you haven't already, be sure to hit that subscribe button and hit that notification bell to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long. And before you head out of here, like the video if you are excited to have Texas Tech football officially back. And it is awesome news to hear that Bryce Ramirez will be at the first practice of 2023 for the Red Raiders after that devastating knee injury he had last year out in Raleigh. I am RC Maxfield. Again, one more time, like the video if you were excited about Texas Tech football being back, and hit that subscribe button to stay in the know on Texas Tech football all year long right here on the Back to 12 podcast channel.